We have been working on getting this interview for over a year now. Here is episode 65, part 1 of the Skip Martin Chronicles. Enjoy the show. It's literally almost an act of Congress to get Skip here.
This is a Skip Martin's podcast.
Skip Martin podcast.
It's not even a Cigar Hustlers podcast anymore.
No, with Mike and Mike as the guest.
I'm the original Cigar Hustler.
It's like when Howard Stern finally got Eddie Murphy into the fucking radio show. Like this is the moment.
He just went crazy.
The difference is that Eddie Murphy's interview sucked. And we're just not even going to have to talk for like the next 8 hours.
That's right. We just turned it on. Hope there's enough memory left on the computer. My 1972 Apple computer.
Always got to throw a jab.
Are we live?
Oh, it's on.
So it is 10:47 Eastern Daylight Savings Time.
Yes, it is.
In the evening.
You're going for the record?
I don't even have to try to hit
He's
the
not
record.
even going to try.
We're gonna cover a lot of ground here, Mike.
All right.
Try to keep up.
Who are we going to try to get now that Skip has been here? That's been
it.
like
We're done. Just shut it down.
The show's over. That's it. Show's done.
Well, this is episode
65.
Right. So, like, first of all, I had to get you guys to like shake off the rookie cobwebs.
Right.
I can't just appear on. I mean, if I'd appeared on episode 3 or something, you'd have forgotten me like the fucking David Blanco episode or something. I mean, how many people have gone back and listened to that one?
Oh, man, I don't know. I haven't had anybody comment about that one, to be honest.
No.
Nobody's really said, hey, that Blanco was fucking amazing.
Tomorrow.
You know? Yep. So, and we have, we still have our guests in the room. We have Miss Brittany,
hey,
Jeffrey, and the ever so quiet Arlen is in the room as well, but she's not speaking.
She spends a lot more. You know the only thing more boring than a 2-hour-long congressional field hearing
Is it a 5-hour podcast?
is a 2-hour-long congressional field hearing in a language you don't understand.
Yeah, no shit. No shit. Yeah, so that was interesting today. I mean, I watched it from afar via Facebook. So
I thought it was interesting. I was a little disappointed that more people didn't show up. I mean, imagine how many retailers within driving distance could have come to that and didn't.
yeah.
I mean, that's really the biggest.
That was the most disappointing part of the whole hearing, that there weren't more industry people there.
Yeah, the biggest problem in our industry, I think, is just this intrinsic apathy.
Right.
So, in all areas, you guys talk about that on a weekly basis, but
Originally, it's part of the Boutique Cigar Association thing that I'm in. We were invited, and then they told us not to come. That it was going to be a more a smaller venue than they had originally planned.
I think a lot of people only wanted to come if they could talk.
Oh, probably, yeah.
And I don't know if people wanted to come just to listen. So, but it was. I mean, look, I flew all the way from Nicaragua to attend it, so I found it extremely valuable. I mean, it's the very first time that I've heard an actual politician talk about our industry in a way that reflects at least a basic understanding of our industry.
Right.
Do you think at all he was doing it just to
No,
say
not
he
at
did
all.
it? No.
I mean, I'm not a far right wing Republican,
Right.
as you know, and I was really impressed not only by his genuine interest. I mean, he was really seeking to do a better job of understanding. But the biggest purpose of the meeting, more than anything, was the way our government works is something has to be in the government record for it to be officially considered by people in the government. So if Marco Rubio's going around trying to promote Senate Bill number 9, which has a long-ass, ridiculous name, but basically it's exempt premium cigars from FDA regulation, if he wants to go around to his peers and to talk about that, he has to be able to refer to evidence and facts that are in testimony that are actually in the record.
Okay. So that's like a fact-finding mission for him.
That's why this wasn't just Marco Rubio shooting the breeze. This was an actual Senate-filled hearing.
Right.
So it had the same kind of force of law as a hearing that you see on TV, you know, where they're asking the 5-minute questions or whatever.
So here's the problem, right? And this is one of the many reasons why I fucking despise some of the people in this industry, like 80% of the retailers. But for one, how many fucking posts have you seen in the past 5 years of, hey, you need to sign here to save this fucking bill?
Right.
So, like, at this point, everybody's fucking totally numb to it.
Right.
Sign here now. Like, okay.
Like the boy who cried wolf.
Right. For fucking what? Right? Mm-hmm. So the 20% of the retailers that actually did give a shit, they're like, okay, pal. Yeah, fucking click here. Just like I've done for the past 5 years.
Been there, done that. Nothing else has happened.
And the second thing is that there was no, I mean, I don't think, I'm not a big believer in some of the representatives of our organization because of the fact that, nobody fucking said, hey, this is a big deal. You need to fucking show up, right? Or any of to that degree whatsoever in the cigar. Nobody's fucking...
Yeah, but we're all grown-ups.
Sure.
You're responsible for understanding your business and understanding that this was a critical thing. So,
but how could you know that it was a critical thing when you've heard so many things before?
I mean, I knew. Well, I can't speak for you.
But would you consider yourself the average fucking manufacturer or brand owner or even like a retailer?
No, I'm not average. Right. I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. Here's the thing: you didn't have to be there to get the information.
Right.
And the fact that people weren't there, I don't think in this. There's no camera on the crowd. There's no
right. I was gonna. How big was the crowd? Was it half full, quarter full?
There was probably 40 or 50 people there. Surprisingly, there was no anti-people there, which I kind of expected. But I mean, it was interesting. Like I said. I feel the way you do. Sign another petition, blah, blah, blah. Call your congressman, blah, blah, blah.
We're a grassroots organization. We're going to save the world. Yeah, I mean, it's like...
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem.
Like the group that went up and they all smoked outside the Capitol.
Right.
That didn't really seem to accomplish much.
Yeah, so, look, here's the thing. Is the Cigar Rights of America a perfect organization?
No.
Not even close.
Right.
If you're a guy who spends $30 a month on cigars... Should you spend $30 once a year to join the CRA? Yes, you should.
That's just plain.
If you're a retailer, should you figure out how to, even if you have to shut your store down for 3 days, how to fly out to the IPCPR to get it re-energized about the business and contribute to the trade show and make that does the majority of our fighting? Yes.
Right.
If you're a larger manufacturer, should you contribute a significant amount of money and participate? Yes. That's how the world works.
Right.
And so I spent... I'm not a big fan of this part of Florida. I spent time here when I was in the Navy.
You're not?
I don't... look, for me to come to Florida, I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning. I have to drive. I have to leave my 2.5-year-old.
Right.
I have to drive, which is basically like taking my life in my hands, driving from Estelí to Managua every time it happens.
Riding with you, it is.
And then I have to wait on an airplane, go through all the bullshit, fly to Houston, wait for 3 hours, and then fly somewhere here to Tampa. I think we left at 3:30 in the morning. We got here at midnight the next night.
Right.
So look, that's not how I like to spend a day of my life.
Right.
It was worth. I mean, it cost $2,000-$3,000 at least for airplane tickets.
Mm-hmm.
It cost, who knows for the rental car and all that.
I just think that you were overly excited. You're like, you know what? I think you woke up one morning and you said, "I'm going to get on this fucking podcast. I'm going to go."
Finally, I'm going to be close enough.
And then he said,
That's
"Oh
what
shit, Marco
happened.
Rubio's talking too about something. I don't know what's going on."
No,
No,
so
really,
if I go there, you just write the whole
sick
thing
of
up.
eating Gallo Pinto.
Right. He
so.
said, "Fuck it, I want to go see Mickey Mouse or something." So here you are.
So here I am.
So what are we going to talk about, Skip?
If you don't have a long list of questions, this is going to be a very painful 5 hours.
You think so?
It's going to be a
think
long
so.
day.
I mean, so like, here's the thing.
did write
I mean,
something down
you've
now.
listened to this podcast. You know that this podcast isn't your standard, hey, fucking cigar this, cigar that, da da da.
My cigar tastes like Rice
like,
Krispies and
yeah, you're saying regurgitated bullshit.
Madagascar vanilla, and I scored a 94.
Right. So
Must
like,
buy a box.
Well, every podcast I'm on is not like that anyway. I don't do the origin story. I don't do the
Well, what normally happens is you just kind of take over the show.
Tasting notes.
Right.
What was that last one we saw him on where he took over the show? Was that Coop?
He was on Coops.
Coop.
And he brought props. You know, and Hector
He had a
Alfonso
better setup than Coop
Espinosa
did.
Cigars was really upset about that. He's like, he fucking brought props. Are you kidding me? Who does that?
I was loaded by the time that
What kind of
show
props?
ended.
He had maps and charts and
I mean,
graphs.
No, they
and-
did a they always review our cigars and do a top 10 at the end of the year.
Right.
I did my top 10 or my top 20 cigar blogs of 2018.
Right.
Had them all on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
He reviewed them all. I mean, in essence, Half Wheel was number one. I mean, which is the only really realistic source that I use for anything.
Was
news
Charlie
related
there
to this
today?
guy.
Was somebody from Half Wheel there?
No,
No.
Charlie wasn't there, but he did check in with me. They actually ended up broadcasting it, so I'm sure they're going to do their own piece on it. But
Okay.
All right.
I mean, so all my questions, everything that I want to kind of pull out of you, is just personal shit that I know about you.
let's talk about it.
Yeah,
I
let's
don't,
go.
You don't know
Good.
half of the shit about me.
No, you're right. You're right. Because you've lived like several lives. I'm surprised you're not 75 years old.
My heart's 75. Just ask my cardiologist.
So, one of the greatest stories that you've ever told me, and I hope that you give it everything that I've experienced from in the past on this show, is a story about you being in the submarine, as the USS Key West.
I was on the USS Key West.
Yeah, and
I was an ELT, engineering watch supervisor.
right. So there's two major stories that you told me when you were in the submarine. All right. One is when you were locked into a room and shit hit the fan. Right.
Yeah, when the whole engine middle level blew up
I'd like you to tell that
and
story.
caught on fire.
Yeah.
Well, you just told it.
That was it. Oh, that was a good story.
Good story, Skip.
That was
Nice
it.
job.
No, there's more to
Nice
this.
job,
than that.
Skip.
I feel like you're not drunk enough to, because like you go into
I'm
way
drinking.
more detail.
I'm on like these 14 to 18%
I want
stouts.
to hear
Right.
the story about when he was in submarine training the first day he got there and got hammered.
I never went to submarine training because I was a nuke, so we didn't go to submarine school.
Right.
Well, where did
Oh,
you?
you're talking about when I went to my sea school in New London,
That's the one.
and I woke up on the golf course in a pool of vomit.
That
Frozen to the ground.
Yes.
Frozen to the ground. If I remember correctly.
I appreciate you giving the actual details of these stories and not just kind of skimming through them.
I mean, sea stories are, I don't know if they convey as well on podcasts. There was the time where we were running a whole torpedo tube full of rum
That was the other story
out
I
of Puerto
wanted to
Rico.
tell you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you'll have to catch me at an event for one of those sea stories.
get the fuck out of here. You got to tell the Bacardi story.
It's a long story.
We got
We have
time.
plenty of time.
We got 5 hours.
Nothing else going on right now.
going for the
that.
world record.
I don't
We're
wanna
only
tell
12
sea
minutes
stories.
into our 5-hour podcast.
It's becoming the Eddie Murphy thing. He's like, he's not going to talk. Now he's not going to talk.
He's going to lock up, and it's just going to be you and me talking.
So he's like, oh, you got questions, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I do have questions. Question number one. He's like, oh, I don't want to talk about
I
that.
mean, you let Caldwell get away with, oh yeah, I was abducted in Africa and whatever. Oh, I'll tell you that next time.
Yeah, so like, here's the thing. I haven't slept at Caldwell's house.
I think
Like,
I haven't slept with Caldwell.
I don't have the relationship with Caldwell that I have with you. So
I mean, I've slept with him.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's true.
So I'll say this.
I think just about all the guys here are slept with.
And we
us.
can, I told you if I ever came on to the show that I would start with, I was born a poor black child,
Right.
because I really was. So we can get in later about my youth, but I have been everything from, in terms of jobs.
Right.
My very first job was emptying trash bags at a car wash, which I parlayed into a marinating chicken at a fried chicken fast food restaurant,
I can see the connection there.
which I parlayed into being the cashier at that restaurant, which I parlayed to working at a framing shop in the mall.
Right.
Then I took a hiatus to Cal Farley's Boys Ranch, where I worked in a hog farm,
Right.
raised pigs, shoveled chicken shit for every morning at 4 a.m, moved irrigation, threw hay, did a roundup for cattle on a horseback,
Right.
cutting
Wow.
nuts and and sleeping out in the rain
Under the stars and
believe it
things.
or not, north of Amarillo.
Eating beans.
Yes, to being one of the best baseball players in the state of Texas. To going to college. In college, I worked a number of different jobs. Went into the Navy. I was on a submarine in the Navy. Got out of the Navy, did my own business, which I sold, a tech thing, and then did financial services, everything from insurance to treasury management. I owned a seat on the Board of Trade. I did debt collections for a little while. I started at Dell in the call center as a sales guy, selling part-time while I was in school, selling which are now archaic computers to American Airlines employees as an employee purchase thing, to doing their call center planning, to doing facilities worldwide, to doing supply chain management worldwide, to doing mergers and acquisitions worldwide, to starting a cigar store, being a cigar blogger,
Right.
starting a cigar brand, opening a cigar factory, taking over podcasts as a guest host.
Commandeering podcasts.
Mentoring struggling retailers.
All right. Mentoring people as a whole.
I've been, it's a little Forrest Gumpish, my kind of whole, I've done a lot of things.
Right. And you still don't want to tell us about the Bacardi story?
I'll have to tell, I'll tell, that's one I have to save face to face.
Jeez Louise. Okay. So, I got to
That
tell you.
involves national security.
Such bullshit. Such bullshit. So, the one thing that really kind of disappointed me in our last trip is that we didn't get to eat at Finca Su Mesa, right? So,
We didn't make chili this time either, I don't think. You didn't go on your citywide search for Fritos.
no, we did not. I think did we bring Fritos this time?
We brought
Yeah, you brought
Fritos.
Fritos this time,
Yes,
but it's not as
not
fun.
Not the right ones, I don't think.
So, I got a funny story to tell you. So, now that enough time has passed, the first time in our adventure, and Danny, I'm really sorry about this, when we were out looking for Fritos, and Danny was driving the car, we had a little run-in with the fucking median. And we fucking went boom, 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 right over the
in my
fucking-
car?
in the Explorer. Yeah,
That's all right. Arlen's daughter,
I know.
Patricia, has since totaled that.
since
Care of the Explorer.
Since it's totally wrecked, and I know that he can't get in trouble for it, it's that was when it had happened. Like, it was total quiet in the car. I was like, bro, I ain't saying a fucking thing. Don't
That's
worry.
a pretty interesting story, which I can tell.
Okay.
So we're flying to Enter Tobacco. We're going about a week ahead of time because we're going to Madrid for a week, so Arlen could go to the embassy and renew her visa. And Arlen gets to the airport in Managua, and she gets a phone call that her 17-year-old daughter has taken the truck from our house and had an accident. That's all we knew at that point. So Arlen's like, I'm not sure if I want to get back. Because Arlen was flying from Managua to Panama to Spain. I was flying from Austin to Spain. And so she messages me, Patricia has totaled the car, basically. I'm like, okay, what? And then, of course, it was, radio blackout for 18 hours. And I'm like, what the, is she okay? Is she dead? Like, I have no idea what happened. So as the story developed, apparently what happens, she's decided that she's going to take the car the 3 blocks to school.
Right.
She's only driven with me once. Wasn't pretty. She's decided she's going to take the car by herself. She hits a truck on the way to school. And then on the way back from school, she dodges a vehicle and runs into a house.
Ooh.
So now I'm, of course, so I'm getting like text from SLE
Right.
of the news. It's actually on the news of the truck
In somebody's house.
run into the house.
Yeah, kind of a big deal in Esteli, right?
Yeah, I mean everybody in SLE knows.
So, okay, so before you get even further into the story, what kind of car was it?
A Ford Explorer,
Okay, how common is that car in Esteli?
the only one. Well, I think AJ used to have one,
Right.
and then we had one.
Okay.
Did
So-
it say Skip
Couldn't
Martin's
buy
car hits
Hilux,
a house?
could you?
Well,
So-
the Japanese don't buy cigars.
Okay, so the car fucking wrecks into a house, right?
Well, it doesn't just do it.
Right.
Someone is driving.
Right. Which is awesome.
Right.
And like, what's even cool for me is like, as much correspondence as we have when you're in Nicaragua and stuff. Like, I don't know this shit. I don't know anything that's going on outside of like factoring bullshit and like back and forth until you like land, and then I'm like, holy shit, this fucking happened. So go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a whole long series of events. The short version is the girl that was in the car.
Right.
Her mother got involved somehow, so we had to settle that out. Then we had to basically negotiate and pay to rebuild that part of the house that got crushed.
Right.
Then we had to basically keep it a non-legal matter, if you know what I'm saying, a non-police matter. And then we had to take care of the other truck, the first vehicle that was hit. Mm-hmm. And then we had to get our car to Managua, which started, this happened in October, and literally the car is still in
Right.
the body shop.
Yeah,
So
because
there-
they don't know what the fuck to do.
There was about, well, first of all, there was like 4 months of negotiating with the insurance company.
Right. Which was the next question I was going to get to.
Yeah, and so basically this whole thing's cost me about $30,000. So,
I mean, if you think about it, for a house and a car, that's not too bad. You know, if you pull into a fucking house in the United States, you're not smashing a $30,000 house. I can tell you that much.
yeah, so that's an ongoing situation.
The struggle is real.
But, you know, that's the news story.
Right.
We've made the news.
Does the news continue to update on the situation, or is it just,
No.
does it die down?
Yeah, there's been dead bodies since then.
Right. So you're just hoping for more
Yeah.
rage and chaos.
But this was like right in the middle of, you know, the blockades and the riots in the streets. And so this was like, you know,
Right.
just
like
a
blip.
little fun news story.
Right. And in other news,
The gringo.
Skip Martin's car ends
Because, you
up
know,
at
as
a
many
neighbor's
people
house.
as you would think spend a lot of time in Esteli based
Right.
on their blending and everything else. But there's really, you know, there's...
which is horseshit. That's what you're trying to say. But go ahead.
So I live there.
Right. How long have you lived in Nicaragua?
5 years,
Okay.
full time, going on 6. There's James Brown, and
Right.
James and Angela, and I'm super jealous of this. They actually live in San Juan del Sur now,
Oh, no
and,
shit.
and they trade turns coming up to the factory.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I'm super jealous of that. But really, James and I are the only real kind of gringos that are there on a regular basis.
Right.
And then there's guys that come in and out, like Hector and Saka and,
Right.
you know, the Pepin family and the Placencias and those guys. But
Right.
but in terms of gringos, you know, kind of brand guys, there's really no other gringos there. So it's a really small
Right.
world.
You kind of stick out.
Yeah, they know everything that happens.
Right. So, can we talk about attempted muggings? Is that permitted?
Sure, we could talk about
Okay.
that.
So how many times? So in the 5-year span that you lived in Esteli, how many times have you been attempted to be mugged?
2.5.
Okay.
How do you?
All right. Well, that's
There-
3.
there's a story here.
Okay. So you want to break down every one of them?
So the first time, so you know, I stay up late. I don't know
Right.
if you know, but
I've heard about that.
I usually wake up about 9 or 10 in the morning, and I'll kind of do Facebook and stuff until noonish.
Right.
I'll eat breakfast when most people eat lunch, and then I'll usually go to bed 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And so back when I first moved to Esteli, I had a little kind of 1-bedroom apartment. And I would walk to the factory, you know, midday, and I would stay there because I didn't have internet at the house. I would stay there and work till 3 or 4 in the morning with the security guard. Then I would leave and go back to the apartment.
Right.
The first mugging, I guess, is the
Attempted mugging.
attempted mugging.
Right.
Yeah. So at that time, I was kind of a rookie. I was carrying a gun
Right.
because I didn't know any
Oof.
better.
Which
Yeah.
could be very,
Yeah,
very.
so what I've since
fucking-
learned is it's much cheaper to pay someone to carry a gun than it is to carry a gun. So I had left the factory at like 3:30 in the morning, took a left. There were some guys on the corner, street up, block up, and the security guy said, "Hey, watch out for those guys. They're drunk." There were these 2 guys. So I took a left. They started following me. When I got to the next corner, took a right. They were coming around the first corner. I got to the next corner, took a left. They were coming around the next corner. So I kind of ducked into this little doorway, and they walked past me. And I didn't really speak great Spanish then, but it was pretty clear what was going on. One of them had a rock,
Right.
and one of them, they were both drunk.
Right.
And they were like, where'd he go? Where'd he go? So I pulled the gun up behind them and let one off, and they shit their pants and ran. So, so that was the only armed engagement.
Right.
So when I told that story, everybody said, "Oh, you're fucking stupid for carrying a gun."
Right.
So.
And that was the end
like
of the
if
gun.
you'd have shot him.
It would have been bad.
We had a guy actually break into our house twice in 3 days. He climbed into the window once when Patricia was there,
Right.
and he came in the living room. She was in the bedroom. He came in the living room, robbed a bunch of stuff in the living room, dove back out the window. And then like 2 days later, I'm in the living room, and he comes through the bedroom window.
Right.
So I grabbed a knife and chased him out the window, and so that was that was fun. And then we got bars in the window.
Right. We should just do something about it.
Yeah.
Because realistically, what you've always told me is, I mean, I know that we're saying these stories, and this is kind of over a 5-year span, but Esteli isn't really a violent place. It's more of a crime of opportunity, right?
Yeah, you're much more likely to get shot in the United States than you are in Esteli, but if you leave your phone on the table, someone will grab it.
Right.
The third time was actually probably about a year ago. I was walking from my house to the factory. I had my computer bag across my shoulder.
Right.
And these two guys, probably, I don't know, 18, 20-year-old guys on a motorcycle. They both probably weighed less than 130 pounds.
Right.
They drove past me. No muffler. You kind of go, what's that? So they drove past, and they started looking back. Then they do a circle around the block, and I could hear them coming back around the block. So one of them jumps off the back of the motorcycle with a big butch kitchen knife.
Right.
And he's like, basically, give me your bag. And I'm like, I'm not giving you my bag. So he goes to put the knife on me, and I throw my bag against his arm and just lift him up and body slam him like WWE style. And his buddy on the motorcycle took off. So I'm standing there with my foot on the knife, and this 110-pound paint huffing kind of knucklehead,
Right.
and he's just like shitting his pants, and this old lady comes out of the bodega with a broom and beats the shit out of him.
Right.
Yeah.
So she like hits him for like the whole block.
Right. With the brush part of the broom.
Yeah,
right?
with the broom, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I outweigh him like 3-1.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not saying I'm Street Fighter,
Right.
But it's a pretty safe place, and
Yeah.
as long as you got your, I mean, we've walked through the streets at night.
Yeah.
I always tell just keep your head up, know who's there, and
Don't stick your cell phone out, and just keep it in your pocket, and
Right,
don't
exactly.
be fucking stupid.
right.
Right. There's always one that you forget, though. There's one that you had one when you were riding your bicycle.
I don't remember.
You were
looks
riding your bike.
dumbfounded.
The story you told me, and then they were coming at you, and you stopped, and you got off your bike, and you said, "What the fuck?"
Oh yeah, but that was that's not even a half.
Right.
That's the.
Well, that would be 3.5.
That's the,
3.25.
it's kind of, they always say, like, because I've spent time all around the world, like
Right.
Panama and China and Malaysia and India and Philippines, and really it's just don't make yourself a target.
Right.
So
Just crime of opportunity.
exactly. So
Right.
that situation was really more just come at me, bro.
Right.
Right.
Did
And
bring him on the
then
bicycle?
they just decided, this guy's got cargo shorts. He's fucking special ops. He's ready. I tell you though, you don't want to get into a fight in flip flops. You're at a strategic disadvantage.
Right.
And plus I only have about 8.5 seconds of good fight in me anyway. So
So you got to do the WWE slam.
you gotta go for the juggler.
You got to
in the
make a
beginning.
statement before they realize that you're getting winded.
Right.
How many pairs of shoes you own?
Closed-toed shoes.
Yeah.
I have a pair of black ones, a pair of brown ones, and a pair of tennis shoes.
And how often do you wear them?
I have 14 pairs of flip-flops.
I have to chime in on this one
Yes.
because I noticed that he's in closed-toed shoes
Yeah, I
tonight.
checked it. I checked
I
as soon as he
was
walked
thinking
in.
United
It's
States
one of
Senator.
6 times this year.
That's just good to see
And
the
I
senator
was like,
shoes.
I was shocked to see no flip flops.
Yeah, I would have changed, but
Time was of the essence.
time was of the essence. Yeah.
Wow.
Can I say this?
Go ahead.
Can I say that I remember the first time I went to Vegas, which was probably two or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that Skip had lost his flip flops.
Oh, it was my birthday.
Yes. Well, first of all, the IPCPR is usually around your birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody bought me these like ridiculously cheap girly flip flops,
Yeah.
and that was a no go.
that
I
wasn't
have pretty high standards for my flip flops.
Yeah. Which one? They got like the hook on them or whatever the fuck. What are they called?
Olakai.
Olakai.
Yeah.
So Arlen's a big fan of the flip flops. We have a whole. She makes me trade them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she makes me change them. Like, those smell bad. Let's wash them. Change your flip flops.
Right. It's time to change the flip flops.
Right. So I have 8 or 9 pairs the chanclas. in Estelina, I have a few pair in Austin.
Okay. So now that you recently had a move to have a place in Austin, right?
Yeah, Mike and I bought a house
Right.
on the east side of Austin, kind of like an investment. And I mean, we got sick of buying watches, and
There's only so many watches you can purchase.
yeah, there's only so many watches you can have. So we bought a house. It's really nice, but that's where I stay when it's actually my house, but Mike and I own it together.
How often do you?
Because he's my boo.
He's your boo. He's my boo too. But this whole new
Are you
Danny
jealous, Mikey?
thing.
You sound a little jealous.
What, between their bromance?
Yeah.
Nah, I don't.
Because you threw in it might be.
You know what it is that it's just that we've kind of lost that love and feeling now that others are involved.
Oh,
Jealous
Yeah.
of Danny.
Yeah, you got
Jealous of Mike.
so like Danny and I are kind of building a bromance, but
Yeah.
it's like it's
never gonna be
it's
the
not-
same.
Yeah, it's just it's
Danny's too sensitive.
he is
He
can
is.
be.
Of all the people who love to give out shit to people,
Right.
he has the least capacity to take it of anybody I know.
Yeah.
Where have we heard that before?
I don't know.
Hector.
Oh.
Hector and
About
Jack
Danny?
both.
About
Danny, yeah.
And
Hector
it's
and
so
Danny.
true.
Hector and Jack both
It's
said
so
that about
true.
Danny.
Yeah, he loves to give out shit, and he's quick with the
He's
comebacks and
fucking
everything.
smart. He's funny.
But then you
When you
land one
slam
on
back,
him,
he's like,
he'll like pout for 2 hours.
Man, fuck you, man. Fuck you. Fuck you. So, you recently acquired another person, the Frenchie acquisition.
John Oliver
Right.
from Zycar. Yeah.
So how's he working out?
Good. Mike manages that side of the business.
Right.
I mean, I kind of manage.
Yeah, but you still know what the fuck is going on.
Oh, of course, to
Right.
the nth degree.
Right.
Every single day.
I mean, there was a time where you put Coy on blast because you were looking at the cameras and he fell asleep.
fell
with his little
asleep.
nappy poo.
Well, that was just kind of a joke. It
Right.
was really just kind of like a hazing.
And then everybody went fucking nuts. On
Yeah,
it.
but we tried to really make Coy part of the team.
Of course.
Coy was Mike's hiring decision.
Right.
I've probably hired in my life. I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 people. I've only fired 4 people in my whole entire life.
Right.
I've forced people just to quit.
Right.
And give up, like ring the bell like a Navy SEAL. but I've only fired 4 who just wouldn't leave.
Right. No, seriously, you gotta go.
So when Coy came to us and said, "Hey, I think we got this opportunity," we're like, "No, what can we do to help you?" And it
need
wasn't because
boxes? Are you
Coy,
ready? You need help
Coy
packing?
was hired to really be a warehouse guy.
Right.
And then he wanted to do more. He wanted to get involved in the sales side. He just didn't have the skill set to do it at that point in time. And then he also missed home. Austin was expensive.
Right.
27-year-olds don't know how to adult anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a constant struggle with laundry. It was epic.
I mean, that's difficult at 27.
Yeah, but now, he's out on the road and everything. I mean, he's working for a great company at Black
Label.
Black Label.
Right.
And
he bathes now.
And he's closer
shaved
to
a couple
his
times,
family.
too.
I think he's doing a good job.
He called me the other day. I forgot to call him back.
Oh my God.
So
Coy, call Mike back. So he doesn't have your number.
How you do a really good job of engaging people on social media, especially Facebook. Do you have like a regimen for that, or do you just kind of wing it, or how often do you check on the content? I know you said earlier that you check it in the mornings, but
I mean, I'm probably on. I mean, I view it as part of my job. I mean,
right.
I probably do social media. If we added up all the screen time, maybe 6 hours a day.
Right.
But I do it from a member of the community perspective, not from a company owner perspective.
Yeah.
I do have to like things that people say on our pictures or do whatever, and that's kind of a company thing. But really, I go into other people's posts and this guy had a baby, this guy's getting married.
Happy birthdays.
Yeah. So
Collages.
yeah, I mean, it's really more being part of the community than I don't view it really as work, but it is really work.
Right, but you do a good job of just being a part of the content, right? And liking and commenting and shit like that. And I think a lot of people don't understand that that's what it takes, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably go through my posts, and other than me saying, hey, I'm smoking a cigar,
right,
and it happens to be mine, I don't really spend a lot of time promoting my own product.
Right.
So when I'm in the factory during the day, from the first day I was in the factory, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool, check this out.
Right.
I still do that kind of stuff, but it's not a promotional thing.
Right.
It's more just like, hey, I'm living my life, and this is the coolest thing ever, and I mean, literally, I do what I want.
I had no idea.
I wake up when I want. I go to bed when I want.
Right.
I smoke what I want
right.
when I want.
Yeah.
I buy what I want when I want.
Yeah,
so
you show up at Cigar Hustler when you want.
I'm pretty lucky that way.
Not gonna lie, I'm really jealous of every time you post food.
Yeah.
Cooking is
God.
is a big part of our life, because for me, cooking is not a job.
Right.
We get home from the factory and we settle our bags in. We separate the baby from Wani, the nanny, and spend a little time with her. And then, when we're kind of talking to each other about anything that's not really business related, we're cutting vegetables and.
Right. I
mean, dinner is a 3-hour thing, pretty much.
For sure.
At the house. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
looks amazing.
So we're not going to talk about the USS Key West.
Oh my God.
All right. So I got
National security, Michael.
So I got a couple touchy ones too that I want to kind of address, because I know why you've done these things, but I want to get it kind of out for the record, right?
Dude, you can ask me whatever you want. I will always fucking answer.
Right, except for what happened on the USS Key West.
USS
Key
West.
Right. So this year you got 3 limiteds coming out, right?
Define limited. But, yeah, go ahead.
Well, so you have 3, exclusives coming out, right? You have the Craft 2019.
Okay, Jeff.
You're right. You have the Witchcraft.
Tobaccology.
Right, and you have the Don Bosco.
Yeah.
Okay.
Old Virginia Tobacco Company.
Right. So, what made you decide to release those products solely for those stores?
So it's a combination of factors.
Mm-hmm.
In all 3 cases, in 2 of the 3 cases, I had the idea for the product. So the Craft 2019 is a humongous pain in the ass to make.
Right.
They can only a pair of rollers that normally makes 350, 400 cigars a day can only make 100.
Right.
They have to touch it 3 or 4 times to do it. We only made, I think, about 4,800 of them.
Right.
And we probably could have made 25,000 cigars in that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
We were definitely going to do the Witchcraft, because when we came out with Craft 2018 that had the Candela foot, we did 2013 and 2014. 2013 was like 2,000 boxes. 2014 was 100 boxes for the Cali Megaherf.
Right.
So I wanted to do a project like that where I wanted to use, because when we were in the blending process for Craft 218, we were going back and forth about whether it should be Candela or Connecticut.
Right.
And so I really liked the Connecticut one. We just didn't have enough broadleaf to make another 2,000 boxes. So that's why we decided to make, a couple 100 boxes of that. And, small retailers, you guys, Jeff, Brett, guys that really support us, but also, having a March, April, May, $20,000 boost of sales doesn't hurt. So
Right.
That's why we did that project.
Right, but it's easy. I mean, you could have just turned any of those brands on to all retailers.
Yeah, but then it's like Sabretooth, where you get one box or two boxes.
Right.
And I just wanted to make it something where we could actually visit the retailer for the release. And, there's just a list of guys I want to do things for, and it's just
Right.
taken me 10 years to get to some of them.
Which was, yeah, and that's kind of what I was kind of getting to. It's like,
Old Virginia is a different thing. Old Virginia, Gary Pesch has 7 stores. He's
Right.
one of these real kind of old school guys who's really supported us, the TAA guys. And, the Black Irish has always been really popular. We could make, I can't make enough of those. So,
Right.
he asked me to do a project, and and this is what generally happens, is at the same time, Esteban's telling me that the church needs help with this program, which has become even more critical because of all the problems that have been happening in Nicaragua. There's people whose dads have left to go to the border. There's people whose moms have lost their jobs, and
Right.
and these kids are like out in the streets just running fucking wild. And so this Don Bosco program, they do a lot with those kids. So, of course, every day I walk around, I'm pulling money out of my pocket for one thing or another. That's just part of the deal. But in this case, Gary was asking me for a special project. At the same time, the church was asking us for a pretty significant amount of money to help them out. And, people like Nestor Plasencia, for example, gives so much to this church. And Esteban's been a member there for 20 years. I think he feels this obligation to do as much as the other guys do.
Right.
And of course, he can't do as much as Nestor Plasencia, but
yeah.
So
that guy owns.
he's a billionaire,
Right.
right? So 2 things happened. One, we were going to do the project, and we were going to give 100% of our profits at the factory level, which is we make about 30%. So if it costs me X to make a cigar, we add 30% to that, and that's what we sell it to the U.S. for.
Right.
Of course, yours we do about 80%.
Right. Of course.
My cigars are 30%.
Yeah.
But then Gary came back and said, "You're pricing this for $1 less than the Black Irish. What if I sell it for the same price as Black Irish, but I'll do $1 per cigar back to the charity as well?" Which actually rates, so altogether it's about $15,000 or $20,000.
Nice.
So it's a pretty decent chunk of money. The average annual salary for someone down there who has a really good job is $3,000 or $4,000 a year. So
Right.
this is basically, it's a pretty significant chunk of money.
So money's being donated on the factory level, right?
Right. That's Esteban and I.
Right. On the Roma craft level, right?
No,
Not on the Roma craft level.
Not on the Roma craft level.
And on Gary's part.
Gary is doing it. Yeah. So what's happened so far? Last year's crop of broadleaf was really bad.
Right.
2 years ago, we use about 3,500, 4,000 pounds of U.S. Connecticut broadleaf, maybe 5,000 pounds, depending if it's XL or whatever. And last year, 2 years ago, we had about 1,500 pounds extra from what we needed. So instead of making more cigars, we kind of held that in reserve.
Right.
And then this year, we only had 1,500 pounds total. So that came available in November. So that's the tobacco we would have used this fiscal year. Mm-hmm. It was just a bad crop, all kinds of things. We've borrowed, we've gone to Frank Miller at Lancaster Leaf in Dominican. We've gone to Gus Cura at Nicoprosa. We've, traded stuff we did have for, because, the heavy broadleaf we use for Cro-Magnon, a lot of people don't use that heavy stuff. So at the end of the bottom line of that is we're only this year making about half as many Cro-Magnon as we usually make.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why we're bringing Whiskey Rebellion national. That's part of the reason why we did the Weaselito. It's part of the reason why we had a little bit of room to do these kind of projects in January, February, and March.
Right.
And we'll have room at the end of the year to do a little bit more of those kinds of things. But, I could release 400 boxes or 500 boxes to one retailer.
Right.
Or I could release 500 boxes to 300 retailers.
Right.
Right.
And these are guys that you've done business with for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the Firecracker Project.
Right.
We've done a lot of our kind of annual limited releases like Blockhead and stuff like that were store exclusives originally.
Right. I mean, mine was Skeeter.
Yeah, and we don't the AWS IB,
Right.
and that was before Palestinian and Guaymaro.
Right.
This year we're doing one for you.
Right.
We're
I wrote
doing
that down.
the War Pig.
The War Pig.
War Bear.
War Bear.
Yeah.
War Bear.
Yeah.
War Pig is next year. Sorry, I let the cat out of the bag.
No, that's SPC's next year.
Yeah. That's actually a great cigar.
Yeah. Yeah. You're really excited about that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some things you've done I'm not a big
He's
fan
like-
of.
Right. So, like, when you say that you like one, I was like, holy shit. You
Yeah,
know?
it's really good. It's actually better than I expected it to be. We actually made a change to it from when you were at the factory at the foot, but
Yeah.
it's even better.
A little tweaking.
Yeah. And then we're doing the new size of the Guaymaro. So, like, I'll give you an example
Right.
of why that one comes around.
Yeah.
So Esteban comes to me and he says, "Hey, here's the production plan for Q1. Here's the production plan for Q2. We have a lot of the San Andreas is coming out of the Pallone in April. What we have left, we've made all the Neanderthals. We've made all the SGPs. We've made all the GDs. We've made everything you've asked me to make. But we still have a lot of small San Andreas."
Okay.
So I'm like, well, he's like, "Do you want me to make more SGPs?" And I'm like, well, no.
Right.
I'm like, well, why not make another small Guaymaro?
Right.
And then because we have enough tobacco to make 5,000 of those, let's do that. So that's where a lot of those things kind of come around is the tobacco really dictates some of that stuff.
Right. So you like the War Bear?
I do like it. And the new Guaymaro is probably my favorite
I mean,
of the
that
four
was
sizes.
that was kind of like a surprise. Like, I just saw the post and I was like, oh shit.
He was a little whiny because he had just come back from Nicaragua, and he didn't know about it.
Yeah, like, how did...
I
was whiny?
You were a little whiny. Yeah, you
So
were
we
whiny.
do this kind of 360 review thing where we give reviews to the guys, and then Danny, John doesn't have anything but positive stuff to say. Danny, of course, has something to whine about.
Right.
So Danny's biggest whine is, I don't like coming into work with all these text messages going, "What's going on with this new thing?" And then I have to read it on half wheel. And then Mike's like, "That's where I find out about it." Welcome to my world.
Right, no doubt. You got another one coming out, too. The Baca. Baca?
Yeah.
That shit right?
Cameroon.
So
Yeah.
you were working on that Cameroon when I was down there in February.
Mm-hmm.
And
We've
but-
been working on it for about a year and a half, I think.
Right, but it was still, I mean, you didn't really talk about it too much. So what's going on with that?
So
Yeah, what's going on with that?
Jack Tarano is a really good friend of mine.
Right.
I mean, probably one of the guys. I mean, if you don't like Jack Tarano, you need to
You're an
question.
asshole.
You're an asshole.
Right.
Yeah. So
It's true.
Jack, since he made the move, even when Jack was with Roberto Duran, him and Sam would come over, and Jack always visits the factory when he comes into town. Esteban actually started, in 1992 or something, with Sergio Cuevas, who was partners with Carlos Tarano.
Right.
Raul, Esteban's brother, who actually now manages Noxa and works with Steve Saka, as an example, for one.
Right.
Raul actually went on the Dunhill Sign Range kind of tour through Europe for Carlos Tarano. And at around that same time, Esteban moved from the Dominican in 1997 to Nicaragua.
Right.
And he started working at a factory that went out of business in like a month. And then he got a job with Fidel Olivas working at Latin Cigar. There was 3 or 4 pairs, small factory. That became one of the largest factories in Nicaragua. Later became STG, the factory right when you come into town.
Right.
And they made Tarano cigars for 20-something years. And so Jack had asked us, he said, "Look, I really want to make something. I want to..." It never really worked out. When Jack went to General Cigar, I think he was struggling a lot with getting new innovative products to reinvigorate the brand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were doing things with Romeo and Julieta, they were doing things with Hoyo, but they really weren't doing anything to help the Tarano line.
Right.
And they haven't really since.
Right.
So,
Yeah, he talked about that when he was here.
yeah, no Jack, no Tarano.
No Jack, no Tarano sampler.
So So Jack had been asking us for years, just kind of like, you were talking about a minute ago, where one day I said, I really would like to work with Cameroon. We have Cameroon binder on the Cro-Magnon Aquitaine.
Right.
But I really wanted to work with African Cameroon as a wrapper. And the 1916 Tarano Cameroon was one that I thought was always really underappreciated. So I said, hey, what I would be willing to do is a limited edition with you. Because of this Cro-Magnon thing, I have a little bit of production capacity.
Right.
So I asked Esteban, as I always do, we're sitting there, and I said, Esteban, what was the blend for the 1916 Cameroon? And he's like, okay, it's Cameroon wrapper, Yamastron binder, Yamastron Viso, Yamastron. I mean, he
Right.
nailed, off the top of his fucking head.
Right.
I mean, and no bullshit. He has like this Looney Tunes fucking binder. Have you seen it?
I was going to ask. Oh, you told me about it.
And it has every blend he's ever worked on in 20-something years. Every one of them. And, a lot of people took credit as the blender, but the blender really is the guy who selects and buys the tobacco.
Right.
Like you blended Paustania.
Right.
But really, we gave you the tobacco to blend
Exactly.
Paustania. And you said, okay, I like this one.
Right.
Right?
I couldn't tell you the fucking difference.
Now,
right.
you
I could
did
tell you
blend
what taste.
the 1-2-3 Sycamore or whatever.
Right, 320 Sycamore.
Kind of a piece of dog shit.
Yeah, that's
but,
one that you fucking hate.
yeah.
I also blended the fucking Warbear, so fuck you.
That's a good cigar.
Right.
We've talked. You haven't quite grabbed the pebble from my hand, Grasshopper.
I don't know, man. You've told me a couple times that I have, so you know.
You did pretty good
Thanks.
with that.
Thanks.
But that's what you do, because I don't get up until noon. I come into the factory like 1 or 2. You get in there early and manipulate Esteban.
It's not really a manipulation thing.
And doing things for you. And then
I think I've heard I got to get in there before Skip.
Yeah, and then I come in and go, what the fuck is this?
This is working on something.
Right. So
you got to go a little deeper than just Esteban too.
So I told Jack, Wilmer, and
you got to know the guys.
yeah,
You know?
well, yeah, $20 will go a long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
$20 in a Cigar Hustlers
Hey,
shirt.
what's up, man? I need this cigar made.
So I told Jack, I said, look, here's what I'm willing to do. I am willing, because I've gone through the warehouse in Santiago with Benjamin Mendez and just seen the tobacco that they have.
Right.
And, I know the tobaccos we use really, really well. I know most of the tobaccos that I can get access to in Esteli pretty well. And this is what always happens. People will say things like, this is the year of the Ecuador, Connecticut, or this is the year of the San Andreas, or here's what really happens. Somebody either decides that they're going to start bringing a new kind of tobacco in, and like in our case, when we started making the Brazil Arapiraca, nobody was using Arapiraca except for Scandinavia.
Right.
And we bought all this, 8,000 pounds, 6,000 pounds or whatever from Fidel Olivas that John Drew had sold back to him. Then we had to go to GK and say, hey, you got to start bringing Arapiraca in for us. So we started bringing Arapiraca in. All of a sudden, there's like 8 other cigars with Arapiraca.
Right.
And I don't have any problem with that. I mean, that's like what happens is the local market starts getting in okra. And all of a sudden, all the restaurants start selling okra dishes.
Right.
Right. It's not that this is the year of the Connecticut. That's what happened to be at the market this
Right.
week.
Right. That's what was available. That's what people could get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, when we started using the double Harrow, Pennsylvania, nobody was using it. That was something they ground up and scrapped.
The Green River Valley.
When we started using the Green River Sucker 1,
Right.
now 5 or 6 other people have started to try to use it. No one understands it, I don't think, is the way we do. But, the Neanderthal is the only way you can really make a cigar with that.
Right.
So I said we can't really get Cameroon and Esteli. There's only 3 people who are really doing Cameroon. Oliva does it with the G, and
Right.
and I forget the name of the family from Africa that it starts with an M. I should know this, but I don't.
Right.
So this family has been selling to Gilberto forever, and now it's particularly with Jay Cortez, they have as much money as they need to buy whatever they need.
Right.
Then STG has it, but mainly most of that stuff gets done in Santiago. And then there's another place that has it. That's where we get our yield for the Cameroon, for the binder. So we said, you know, if I can go into your warehouse with Esteban and we can go pick out the tobacco we want, then we'll blend one of these for you. And it's our interpretation of the original 1916 Cameroon.
Right.
Because it's something that a lot of people don't talk about. And this isn't a evaluation of whether this is good or bad. This is just the facts. Mm-hmm. Fidel Olivas, in one example, Fidel Olivas was a farmer. Fidel Olivas had tobacco in Esteli. Fidel Olivas was one of the very first people to build relationships to cultivate tobacco in Pueblo Nuevo. Fidel Olivas had processing in farms of Esteli and Regadillo,
right,
which is probably the best Esteli leaf. Now there's none grown there, and it's a shame.
That's where you took me. That's the mountains, right?
Yeah. And so when Swedish Match purchased CAO, the production was still being done at Latin Cigar. Then Scandinavia bought Swedish Match, and Swedish Match, the CAO thing got pulled up under General Cigar. If I have that correct, I'm pretty sure I do.
Mm-hmm.
That whole time,
we don't fact check.
Esteban worked.
Do you need a cigar?
I got one.
Okay.
Esteban was managing the Scandinavia factory. Well, what happened was okay, we'll buy cigars from you. Fidel was making the majority of the cigars, Latin Cigar, with his own tobacco. A lot of the blends had Pueblo Nuevo. A lot of the blends had his proprietary kind of tobacco. And then, of course, when Scandinavia took over, what they decided to do was not to buy tobacco from Fidel Olivas anymore.
Right.
Because right in the middle of all that, Fidel Olivas just happened to start a whole other factory and was using his best tobacco at the other factory and was taking a lot of customers from Latin Cigar, like the Newmans and Gurkha and Tarano. And so there was not a good separation there, kind of like, we talked about earlier with Jeff. And
partners.
So
partners.
So what was happening, one of the number one projects that Esteban had worked on that he was very, very, very proud of late on was the La Traviata.
Mm-hmm.
And they had substituted a lot of the original material in that blend for things that they had from their farms in Honduras or Dominican or whatever. And so it completely changed the blend.
Right.
Right? And he really took that personal. Like, there's no integrity of the blend. It's just a bullshit brand.
Right.
And I'm not saying the old one's better or worse than the new one. I'm just saying
it's different.
It's different, and he wasn't happy about it.
Mike Palmer's in the room, everybody.
Right. So, 1916 Cameroon was one of those.
Right.
Where the tobacco that was used before was not used later. Mm-hmm. So our kind of whole pitch to Jack was, we'll make it, but we're going to make it with the original blend.
Right.
We're going to go to the farm where the original Hamastron was purchased. But we need to get the Cameroon from you, and we need to. And by the way, we're not using Colombian, because Colombian was in the original blend, and Colombia was kind of like this filler tobacco that Latin Cigar used a lot, which I'm just not a huge fan of.
Right.
So we were going to substitute the Colombian tobacco, and we were going to do our own kind of spin on it and do a limited edition version. So we started blending that, which is really my first time ever blending with Cameroon.
Right.
And was also a really kind of an eye-opener for Esteban, saying, how do we switch out things and make it better?
Right.
Right. And so, longer story shorter, in the middle of that is when Scandinavia took a kind of a left turn on Tarano as a brand,
right,
and canned Jack.
Fueling the growth. They were fueling their growth.
Right. So at that point for us, it was, we're not trying to replicate these sizes of the original 1916 anymore. Right. What if we made the Cro-Magnon sizes, and what if we did it more consistent with our tobaccos and just did our own version? What is the best Cameroon we could make?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we started making, I think we did about 10 other varieties of it. Still has the core of Honduran tobacco, still has the core of the Cameroon.
Right.
We changed up the binder and some of the filler.
It's got your tweak on it.
Yeah, and then this is the first time we've actually taken the blend back to Austin, and as a team, we've smoked all the different finalists
Which I just want to say that I think that's complete horseshit. I feel like I should have been incorporated in that, and you should have at least sent me a couple.
Well,
I'm with you, brother.
You know what I mean? This is fucking what the fuck.
Well, it's all I can tell you is almost always when we get down to the final 3 or 4, Esteban and I almost always land on the same one.
Really?
There have been a couple of times where Mike and I have landed on one, and Esteban was kind of the odd man out. But this time, almost everyone universally agreed that this was the best option. And it's completely different than most things we make, because it's, everything we make, you could say that's a Nico Sueño cigar, because it has a very signature kind of characteristic. I mean, it tastes like the factory smells, like you say it a lot. And this one is completely different.
No shit.
And it's I've smoked a lot of Cameroon cigars. 'Cause like traveling, I'm like, okay, let me get the La Flor Cameroon, let me get this Cameroon, let me get that one. And if it comes out as good as I think it's going to, it's probably, I think, one of the best Cameroon cigars.
Okay. Why call it Baca?
So there's 4 kind of deviants of the original early modern human. There's Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, the Denovians, and Asia, and then there's what they call the ghost DNA, which is they've never found they've only found like a finger. So there's this. They see these remnants in. I've posted a story on this on Facebook, but there's these remnants in DNA that says, we know this came from Cro-Magnon, we know this came from Neanderthal, we know this came from Cro-Magnons having sex with Neanderthals.
Right.
There's this other chromosomal artifact that they call the ghost part of the DNA, ghost chromosome, because they don't know where it came from. And there was a guy in North Carolina that had this, and they tracked it back to this pygmy tribe in Africa. And so it's the 4th leg of the early modern human.
Aha!
And it's Africa, Cameroon. The Neanderthal was discovered in Germany.
Right.
The Cro-Magnon was discovered in France, and then this is Cameroon.
So what you're saying is there's a lot of detail in everything that you do and everything that you name.
Well, I try to make it relevant. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just the Cameroon Robusto. And if that's all you know, then
That doesn't sound quite as good as the
Roma
Baca.
if that's all you know, you can still enjoy the cigar.
Right.
But once you get kind of more engaged with the brand, you take the first label off, there's something underneath it. There's every name. Like one of the sizes is called Otabanga. And he actually is not Baca. He's not a pygmy. I mean, he is a pygmy, but he wasn't Bachma. He was more of a Congolese pygmy. But you could Wikipedia this, but Otabanga is... this is a fucked up story, but literally he's a guy that they snatched out of Africa and they put him in a zoo.
No shit.
Like he was an animal.
Wow.
Damn.
And then, you have to Wikipedia. You wouldn't believe if I told you the story.
Right.
But so you get this name called Otabanga, and it's like, what the fuck is Otabanga? Mm-hmm. And then you go wiki and go, holy shit, I can't believe we did that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they literally had this human being in a zoo.
That's fucking...
Yeah. So... I mean, those kinds of things are fascinating to me. The whole subculture of cigars is about, the anthropological kind of aspect of this, the historical aspect. That's kind of what we.
Right.
You got to name it something.
Right.
I mean, you could name it something that I mean, when you were coming up with your brand.
Right.
My advice, maybe the best advice you ever had. I don't know.
Possibly.
Seems to be a theme tonight.
Right.
But I gave you this advice of. Make it personal.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's the funny-looking Polish one with Perfecto.
Right.
But if you start to learn, I mean, I've learned even since then about the uprising in Poland. I've had people come into the factory from Poland, and they're with like some Peace Corps group or whatever, and then they see that example box sitting there, and they go, holy cow, what is this?
Right.
I'm like, well, that's a brand we make for this guy. Like, do you know what this is? I'm like, yeah, I know what it is.
Right.
And then they tell me the whole story about, the Polish uprising and Warsaw and everything, and I'm like, yeah, but for someone who doesn't even smoke cigars, who sees that, they immediately connect with it.
Right.
And then they're like, well, I want one of those boxes. I'm like, well, I don't have any of those boxes. So then I have to get Freddie to bring, boxes over for them. So, Make it personal. Make it mean something.
Right.
You know, people say, "Oh man, this is." I mean, it's a whole lot better than just some gringo guy making up Spanish names.
Right.
Like Steve Saka. What the fuck is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck that guy.
You know, Steve's one of my oldest. I was a huge Steve Saka fan before he knew who I was. Mm-hmm. And years later, when I was in the business, I came over and sat with him and said, "Hey, man, you know, you're one of my idols in the business." He's like, "Who the fuck are you?" You know,
Right.
I got a cigar brand. He's like, "What?" Everybody's got a cigar brand now.
Right.
But since then, we've become more peers.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
You know, I get along with him now.
Arlen
It's
loves
amazing.
Steve. In fact, the only cigar Arlen will smoke now
Is the
is the Sin Compromiso, which,
Yeah. What's the number one cigar in Degenerate Weasels?
yeah, I'm like, do you realize that's $18? But Steve loves that's her favorite cigar.
Oh yeah, he takes great pride in it. I mean, he won one of the Fiorellas that you had me bring up.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Steve, his online persona aside, Steve has a very... The interesting thing is once you know Steve, you really notice that Steve is worried that people aren't going to accept something.
Right.
You know, like me, I honestly just make what I like, and either you buy it or you don't, right?
Right.
I think Steve really has always felt like he has this like reputation he has to live up to,
Right.
and so he like overdoes everything,
Right.
and so
Brittany,
that's where his
Waitress. Waitress.
I think it's locked upstairs. Sorry.
that's where all that stuff comes from.
Yeah.
That's where all that comes from, is out of this fear
Over
that
by
he's
the
not going to be
raccoon by the
successful.
dumpster.
Right.
If I was going to psychoanalyze him,
If you're gonna psychoanalyze Steve Saka.
yeah.
You know what's cool is like he stopped in to say hi to me. You know, a few months ago, like a month ago.
Like a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know, true estate Saka would, and he was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" You're like, right? But now, you know, it's totally different.
Well, you know, Steve, if he had started with guys like you,
Right.
I think he would be in a much better position now than he is. Now he's got guys he's gone into because they brought in Drew Estate Steve Saka. They never really supported his brand, and really it's guys like you that really do the best job with his brand. So he's kind of learned that lesson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy for sure. All right, so I got a couple other questions.
I got a lot more to
That alarm's
tell
probably
you.
on.
David's car's still out there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's why I was telling her what his car looked like.
This is what brings the touch of professionalism to this
Right.
podcast.
Oh yeah, we're definitely not at that
breaks.
level. We don't give a fuck.
We're literally just recording a bullshit conversation in a garage.
Right.
Just
And you know
what it is. Exactly.
Wait a second, we're not in the fucking garage.
Oh yeah, we're in
come
the,
on.
We're in the
the non-smoking
auxiliary.
smoking
the
Hustlers.
non-smoking smoking
Yeah.
lounge. There used to be the my Bible study room.
Right. So what's going on with the Connecticut Cro-Mag? Is that a thing?
So, not really. Mike and
Should be.
Dan like to send ideas to Esteban without me know about it.
Right.
And they say, "Hey, can you make
You
me
might want
50
to start
of
getting
these?
up
Can you-"
earlier. Seems like a lot.
I mean, that's kind of bullshit though,
get up.
because we were talking about it, and you had it done when we were there.
So I mean, we take. So
thought that was my
we're sitting
idea.
there in the room, and I'm like, "Hey, go take some segundos
Right.
that are already aged. Take the wrapper off and put a Connecticut on and see
Right.
how it smokes." Yeah,
And give them all to Jeff.
yeah. That's not something that's going to come out anytime soon, but
Okay. Why?
He seems so disappointed. Okay.
yeah. There's
I mean-
a long list of things to do.
I mean,
before
one of
we
my
do
favorite
that.
cigars is the Brotherly Kindness, right? I mean, I smoke that cigar literally every day, right? So, you know, a different Connecticut shade coming out of that factory, I'm always intrigued. You know,
I'm not a big fan of that. I don't even like the way it tastes. But what I have been looking for is natural shade, U.S. Connecticut broadleaf. Mm-hmm. So we've been trying to
sounds
find.
expensive.
We've been trying to find some, lighter kind of shade grown, or at least natural color, Colorado color, U.S. Connecticut broadleaf. Because I remember back in the day, things like Fuente would make some of those, like La Unica and some other ones that I really liked. And it doesn't have that bitter, grassy taste that Ecuador, Connecticut has.
Right.
So I've been looking for that. And if we can ever find some of that, we'll probably make like a Black Irish version, kind of 400 or 500 boxes or something.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I've got like 6 tobacco plants I've grown at home. If you want, a little something different.
Right.
Yeah, the Florida shade grown.
Super,
The Florida sun grown.
Super
Yeah,
elite.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cut off right here and end part 1 of the Skip Martin Chronicles. Stay tuned next week for part 2 and then part 3.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from the correctional institution. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1. To refuse charges, thank you for using T.
This has been a Cigar Hustlers Podcast, a Mike and Mike production. Make sure to come back every Tuesday at 10 a.m. for a new episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe on whichever providers you use. Come back next week for part 2.